I think a lot of us, Jim, are just kind of getting into this whole content creation thing, right? Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're a solopreneur, whether you have maybe a job, a W-2 job, call it a real job, right? And you're doing content creation maybe on the side, right? And you're working on other stuff, whether it's Amazon, like Scott is, or other revenue streams for you, or other parts of your brand. You're kind of drowning a little bit in content creation. I mean, tons of social posts that you've got to keep track of. You're getting overwhelmed with what platform should I be on? There's a new platform that's launching all of the time. Should I be on Rumble? Should I be on X? X is charging me right now. All of these things can get really confusing, and then when all of that's happening, you kind of get frozen, just like you get frozen with tech, right? Like, should I have this camera? Should I have this microphone? Should I? And so we felt like it was a great opportunity to get our next guest on the show, because he's going to help us kind of wade through that whole thing and kind of clear the mind junk on all of this stuff. So I want to introduce to you the CEO and founder of ZenPost and personal and business branding strategist, Mr. Dave Polykoff. Dave, man, welcome to the show.
Chris, Jim, thank you so much for having me. This is going to be great. And I know we were talking a little football early on in this episode here, and I have to give a shout out. I'm from Philly. So, of course, I'm a Birds fan. Go Eagles. And not a lot to be cheering about these days with us, but hopefully we turn it around.
That is so funny. That it's like all we need is a Giants fan to join, and the whole division will be here on the
Holy
show,
Trinity
right?
here. Yeah,
that's right. That's amazing. And so, Dave, I know you're based in Philly. Have you always been based in that area, or
born and raised?
Okay.
I won't do the whole Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. I wasn't born in West Philadelphia. Okay. But no, I was raised in the suburbs, and about 12 years ago moved into the city. And yeah, it's going to take a lot for me to get to pull me out of the city again.
Very cool. Very cool. So, some of the folks, for the first time, they're seeing Dave Polykoff and they're like, okay, who is this guy? But we're going to get to your origin story eventually and kind of how you got, to where you're at, because you've worked with a number of companies, started your own company. But I wanted to just maybe start off, right here and kind of talk about, because when people hear personal branding, they immediately might think logos. They might think fonts. They might think colors. When you see Dealcasters, you're seeing like, shiny objects and like everything is a certain color and a certain font. But personal branding is more than just that. And I wanted to roll it to you and really get your high level of, what a personal brand is. And if you're someone in our audience, why the heck would they even care about doing it? Why do I need a personal brand, Dave?
Absolutely. Well, great question. It's funny you asked that, because I literally put out a post today on LinkedIn that verbatim, I'll try to see if I can copy it verbatim here, but put simply, personal branding is the promotion of your industry positioning in order to drive interest to your product. So what is all those things? What are all those P's? So the promotion is what you were talking about, content strategy, showing up and talking about what you believe in and what your offer is and how you can help people through content. It's also what we call like your digital billboards. That's your online profiles, that's your websites, that's your lead magnets that you have, and then obviously your products. So, what you have to offer people, what value you're bringing to the world. So really, it's just a combination of those three things: is understanding what value you have to bring to the world, and then finding the right places to show up and talk about it. And, you mentioned a brand logo. What I like to say is that your profile picture is your personal brand logo. So in a sense, there are some concepts of logos in personal branding, but I really think just your mug is really what your logo is.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest testament to that would be like, what are the most popular thumbnails that people click on YouTube? It's the face, right? It's like what what expression is that person showing? And it's humanizing your brand, what your message is, that face. It's interesting that you put it that way, because I think when I started my business initially, Dave, is like, that was the first thing I thought of, was create a logo, right? Oh, this is cool. Let me create this dog, that has this lightning and this, and I came up with this great logo. Same with Dealcasters. But it never really resonated with people until we really started showing ourselves in this and with live video. So speaking of live video, how do you work with companies and kind of encourage them to do lives, showing up as themselves, or vice versa?
So live video can be pretty nerve-wracking. So really what we start with is trying to get you comfortable in front of the camera, even if it's just you recording alone in your basement or wherever, and you feel comfortable and safe and you're able to record a quick talking head video. A lot of people don't feel natural on camera by default. They also don't understand like the equipment and the lighting and the backdrop to use, and they get a little too much in their head. So I would say definitely live video is something to work yourself towards. But if you're just starting out, you're still kind of workshopping what you want to say, how you want to show up. The best way, your best foot forward on camera. And sometimes the best way to do that is just get the reps in with a pre-recorded thing where you can go back to the editing, the chopping block, and edit things and make you sound and look better and build your confidence. And then eventually, definitely live is great. Live is a big thing right now on every platform. Unfortunately, LinkedIn's not working, but I know LinkedIn is really great for live. YouTube, and now Amazon is just a really great opportunity, not only to get distribution, but also monetize, through some of the products as well.
Yeah. And Dave, I think the other thing too that I find interesting is, even when you see these people that are doing video, it's like, do you feel like they need to work towards that perfect take? Or do you think just like, even if it's recorded, is being more yourself and it's okay, you got some ums and ahs and it's not completely polished? I mean, what do you kind of think people need to do?
It's an interesting time right now where the pendulum swings back and forth on this. And it really depends on the channel. So on Instagram, it's more of a polished channel, right? It's got its start based on photos with filters on it because it wanted you to feel comfortable and confident in the picture that you were posting. Right. And it's just kind of taken that vibe ever since, right? It's the reels that are being published are a little bit more polished, edited. You're showing up in kind of your best Sunday best. While TikTok, on the other hand, is a little bit more freeform, authentic, if you will, a little bit more like walking and talking with your iPhone, or just kind of like sitting down on your couch and propping up your iPhone. So it kind of depends on the channel. You can have the same type of video, or you want to say the same thing, but potentially even recorded in two different ways, because one just kind of performs better on the other, just based on the demographic and what people are used to on that channel. So depending on where you're focused, I would say that's going to dictate maybe your video editing style. I'm big on LinkedIn right now in terms of where I'm focused for content creation, and I take a little bit more of a polished approach, but I'm also going to start doing a little bit more of the unedited, just kind of free form, click record and just record myself without much editing style. I'm going to test that and see how that is on LinkedIn. But it definitely comes down to the channel, and then also just like how your brand identity is, and who your target market is. If you're selling, $1 million financial packages, you might want to come off a little bit more polished and, maybe not wear the fitted hat and the t-shirt in your videos, and have that button up suit and leave out the ums and ahs because you want to sound confident in what you're talking about. But if maybe you're just like a fitness trainer and you want to show your personality and all that, maybe leaving in the ums and ahs and the quirks is better for you, because that's going to be how you're going to be in real life anyway.
Do you feel like sometimes when you're working with companies and they want to be in lots of places, like we need to have an Instagram profile. We need to have a TikTok. We need to be on Pinterest. We need to be on Facebook. We need to be kind of everywhere, at least having real estate there. So you got to put content there. Do you ever recommend like taking, say, a vertical piece of content that can land in those places? In other words, it has the right sizing and the right time, and just kind of like put that one piece of content in all the places, see what resonates, and kind of go, okay, we're gonna go here with that type of content, as opposed to just spraying it and praying kind of thing. What's been your experience with content like that?
If you're going from 0 to 1, where if you're a listener today, coach, consultant, solopreneur, and you want to start a personal brand, you haven't been showing up with content, and you want to start creating content and publishing, the number one thing to first do, besides a whole process that I have, but if you're going to publish content anyway, it would be to choose just one channel and dominate that channel. And I say that it's kind of like a boiling pot. You wait for that water to boil over, and then as soon as it boils over, then you start boiling the second pot. Because you really want to kind of stake your claim as an authority somewhere first. Make sure you're dominating that channel. Make sure if you're a coach consultant and you rely on leads and clients, you want to make sure you're making money, because the spray and pray method is like, I hope something's working, right? Versus like, I'm going to go all in, putting all my chips on LinkedIn or something. And, hell over high water, I'm going to make sure I dominate LinkedIn. That's where you want to focus, especially because each channel, as I mentioned, has its own unique requirements. It's, some channels you can only upload up to like 1:30 video. Other channels can be 10 minutes. And some channels have different settings when you're publishing a post that you can do. You can add audio, some you can't. You can add a cover photo for some. And to try to keep up with each channel's requirements and vibes, again, TikTok versus Instagram, you're going to spread yourself too thin. You're going to be banging your head against the wall. Instead, just find the one channel that you're going to dominate, understand its quirks, understand the types of conversations that do well on there, test. And then eventually you'll find your footing on that. And then once you find your footing and once you start to get into a rhythm and you get to scale content, because again, it's kind of like podcasting. They say like most people start podcasts and then they reach episode 7. Yep. And that's they find that it's way too hard, way too much effort.
Right.
And they never post another podcast. So it's like, with content creation, creator burnout is a huge issue. So you want to make sure that you can stay consistent with it. You can show up and be authentic and consistent to the point where you figured it out. And at that point, figure out how to then replicate it across your other channels.
So how does one determine which platform that they really need to focus on? I mean, if I'm a small business owner, I mean, I realize we're getting into the blueprint here, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you need to check out the podcast, which is Personal Brand Blueprint. And if you're not on Amazon, you can't click it on the carousel. Wherever you're at, pull it up in a podcast player and grab that Personal Brand Blueprint. So if I'm a business owner, Dave, entrepreneur, or doing a side hustle, how do I know where to start at what platform? Like TikTok's fun. I'm on TikTok, but then my customers may be here or here or here. How does one sort of ascertain like where should I put my content? What type of content there?
You just answered the question. It's wherever your customers
I'm being
are.
a terrible podcast host.
Yeah. Spoiler alert.
Yes.
No. The answer is it's where your customers are, your clients. There's no reason to be on TikTok if your clients aren't actively on there and looking to engage with a person like you or an offer like you. If you're a B2C play, I think TikTok's really great. They added a shop and that's doing wonders for people. And eventually people are outgrowing the TikTok shop and going on to Amazon and such. Especially too, because TikTok has that option where, the average Joe or Sally can promote your product through a TikTok, and then add a little call to action link at the bottom, and they get a commission or whatever. So you have kind of the affiliate play worked into the platform itself, kind of like Amazon. If you're more of a coach, consultant, B2B, or working directly with like just business professionals in the services industry, LinkedIn is where you want to be. If you're a realtor and you want to be a little bit more community based, Facebook is where you want to be, because there's a lot of Facebook groups that you can join, shake hands, with those people. So it really depends on, what your service is, where your target market already is. And that's kind of the first part of the conversation is like, who you're trying to sell to. And, are you B2B, B2C, and how much of a professional are you looking to buy to or sell to? And then, just a matter of like what your vibe is as well. So like sometimes how you show up on that platform is all part of your brand identity as well, which we help you work through in terms of, we all, again, should work towards being on video, but not a lot of people are comfortable right at the gate. So sometimes just, text-based, image-based photos and such is where you want to start. But, some platforms are better for that than others.
Yeah, Dave, you've talked earlier too about seems like you're really focused on LinkedIn. I don't know if you always have been. And I know I was at a luncheon a couple months ago where I was speaking, and I was, kind of asked like, how many of you businesses are posting on LinkedIn? It was like 3 out of 50. What do you see as maybe that advantage to leaning into LinkedIn, especially for folks that are in B2B that they're maybe missing out on? And what would you recommend they do to get moving in that direction with their brand?
Yeah, I would say one of the number one reasons we hear, there's two main reasons that we hear people aren't showing up on LinkedIn. And there's some crazy quote that I think like 1% of LinkedIn users actually ever post something, which, is insane. And then even on that, when you do post something, people who actually see your content but engage with it is like even lower. So it's one of those things I always tell people, like, even if you're not getting engagement, it doesn't mean it's not being effective. But in any case, and I think the two main reasons that we hear why people don't post, one is people have a negative connotation with social media. I think the like millennials, whatever's above millennials and the boomer demographic, whatever, they're basically, that generation, we've grown up on social media, and it's for better or worse, played a large part in our lives. And we've kind of somewhat gotten jaded by it in some cases. In other cases, it's changed people's lives for the better. But there is this sentiment where people are just like, I hate the poison that is social media, and I hate how fake some people can be, and I don't want to contribute to that. And so that's one of the large reasons is people just have a negative connotation. But kind of our response to that is, those are people who are doing it wrong, first of all. And two, those are people who are trying to manipulate, and they're in it for the wrong reasons. As long as you come authentically and with empathy and generosity and a genuine way, there's nothing wrong with being on social media and trying to promote yourself in a business that you think can help people. And the other reason that people aren't publishing on social media is largely because they just don't know what they should be posting. They have an offer, they have thought leadership in their head, they can be changing people's lives, but they don't know how to translate all of that into content that people are going to care about. And they're worried that they're going to show up and look like, the person that maybe they're rolling their eyes at, like someone who's tried hard, who's making the video that they're like, I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want to be that person. I don't want to be seen as like that. And so they just don't know how to translate the quality content that lives in their head into content that people will actually care about. And then, there's a little bit of kind of like imposter syndrome and worry that they're going to be looked at differently. So really the big response to that is that this is all mental. There's a lot of sentiments in there that I think are preventing you from being successful. And, it's the same thing. Like if you want to get in shape, but, you don't want to go to the gym, the first couple months of your training because you're scrawny and you're lifting 15 pounds when the person next to you is lifting 200 and you're comparing yourselves to other people.
Right.
Well, you're never going to get in shape, if you never start. And so that's the whole mental thing. And so largely you have to feel the pain enough where you're not making as much money as you'd like. Your business is failing. You're not able to support your family. Some sort of catalyst needs to happen where you go, okay, you know what? I need to make a change. I need to kind of get over it and, finally invest into me, which is what I say is, your Me LLC is the greatest investment you can make in your life.
I love that. I never really thought about it like this, Dave, is that, we talk about this all the time. A lot of people talk about this stuff all the time. And that fear of the camera, right? Or the not understanding the tech, or, right? All of that stuff. But you talked about it initially and you said that there's a lot of people that look at people who are creating content and go, I don't want to do that. Like, I don't want to be that kind of person that I don't like to see. And I think that's a huge thing. A lot of the clients I work with, it's like I'm not on TikTok. And I'm thinking to myself, but if your audience is there or potentially there, like, it doesn't matter if you like it or not, right? I don't really like TikTok, but, I know that we've gotten, some business from there. And what we do is some of the live selling. So there's a connection there. So how do you work with someone to kind of bridge that gap of like, listen, I don't like it, so I don't want to be there. But you have to, explain to them, like, listen, if you want your brand to be extended because your clients, your customers, your prospects are here, how do you get them through that?
To be honest and truly candid with you, we don't work with those people because they're not ready to do the work. Yeah.
Okay, I love it.
Yeah, it's like someone, again, to use the fitness analogy, it's like you're a personal trainer and someone wants to sign up for personal training, but says, I don't want to do push-ups and sit-ups and whatever. Okay. Yeah. Okay, then you can't come here. Like, I don't know what you want to do.
I don't want to do leg day, right?
Yeah. You came to me because you have a problem. I'm giving you the blueprint on how to solve that problem. If you want to be successful, you will follow it. And there might be some complaining, but do it in the shower, away from me, kind of thing, right? So yeah, it's again, it goes back to the mindset where it's like you need to have the pain needs to be so large that the little voice in your head saying, "But I don't want to do that. I don't want to get up early and run the mile," right? It blocks it out. Because you're here to make a change. You're here to, solve people's problems. And, it's a selfish thought to think, I'm not going to do the work because, because I don't feel like it or I feel icky or whatever, when that's just, it's self-doubt is getting in your own way. And again, if you're knocking on my door because you want to make a change, it means whatever you're doing right now isn't working. So you need to do something different to see different, and that means doing some things that maybe you usually aren't. You're usually not doing, and that's why you're going to be successful. But if I was to then kind of walk them through it, all that aside, I think again, it comes down to the idea that people don't want to be the icky version of what they see online. And that's the number one thing that we start with, is to make you feel comfortable. We start with an interview process with our client where we understand who you are at your core, at your essence. Like, what is your vibe? What are like the little traits and quirks about you that make you, that are going to make you authentic? And we provide that back to you. Because one thing is, it's easy to to have negative thought and go, I can list 15 things I hate about myself. Mm-hmm. But it's very difficult to list out the things that you love about yourself or that other people love about you. It's tough to be self-reflective in that way. So you do need someone to go, listen, after the time we've spent together, here are the things that are going to make you successful when you show up on camera, because I love when you do this. You have a great sense of humor and great sarcasm. Like, lean into that. So we put that together in a brand profile, in a brand identity, and we provide that back to you and say, here's how you're going to feel most comfortable in your content and most authentic. And when you understand, okay, I can show up naturally and lean into the things I already do naturally or authentically, and I'm speaking my truth, right? You're not lying about, right. You're not a snake oil salesman trying to pitch something you don't believe in. Then if all of those stars align, you shouldn't feel icky about anything, right? And you don't have to do it the way maybe some of the creators you're seeing, or even your favorite creator, how they're doing it, right, because that's how they're doing it. We want to find the way that is going to be natural for you so that you stand out in your market. So it's just a matter of people getting just a bad sentiment because they're seeing the ways that they don't want to do it, but they haven't figured out the way that they should do it. And that's, step number one for us.
I love that you were like, well, to be candid, we don't work with people like that. That's the classic, like, hey, we've had some bad clients, in the past. So we've learned that we don't work with those people.
It's a waste of everyone's time. Then, right. We're not going to you're not going to get the results you want. Right. And it makes us look bad. It's going to be a waste of your time and money. So let's just come back to us when you're ready.
You talked about, in a little bit of comparison, like, some of your favorite creators, and we have influences, right? I have a ton of, people that, and I'm sure you're a creative person. You have people that you subscribe to and have influences. And I think a lot of times when people are starting, in content creation, they go, well, there's already a podcast. There's already like 100. I can name 50 podcasts that talk about the same thing, right? Or I can talk about, or like they're saying the same thing on this TikTok channel, or on, like this is the same kind of thing. Talk about, if you would, how you would work with someone that is stuck there. Like, I have, I know who my prospect is. I know where I should put my stuff, but it just feels like there's already a bunch of people that are saying the same thing as I am.
Yeah, that's another big one. And that's another reason people don't show up with content too. Yeah, is because what else do I have to say that's not already being said? There's a couple of things that are key here. One is that's the beauty of personal branding, is that it is the personal side of branding, where there can only be one you that has your stories, your quirks, how you see things, and your success story, your origin stories, and how you deliver that information. So I like to say there's kind of this like uniqueness scale. And on the far right, there's information, facts. No one can claim to own the fact. Everyone can show up and tell the same fact. And so again, how are you differentiating yourself? You're saying the same thing. And that's what I think people have in their head, is just, okay, a fact is a fact is a fact. Why use me or view my content over that one? Well, if you're just basing it on facts, the information being presented, sure. So that's why you kind of go up the next scale to the next scale, and that's the how of that information, right? So some people, again, aren't really good on camera, and they more so are maybe long form text content, or they do infographics or whatnot. The how you present that information is really critical, because some people, not just how some people are able to deliver it, but how people prefer to consume it. So again, video, it might be audio podcast, it might be, I know some creators that like are really great artists, and they'll do infographics or just illustrate the concepts. So there's a way that you can deliver the information that's going to be unique and set you apart from a segment of your market already. So you have to kind of figure out where you can lean into there. And then lastly, as I mentioned, is just your unique brand and quirks and stories that makes you, not to use like the snowflake thing, but like you are one out of, 7 billion or whatever we are at now. And so you have a unique way of looking at things. You have a unique humor. You're the only one with your story. And that's what's great about content creation is a lot of what content creation is. And I think we mentioned at the beginning of this episode is storytelling. And one of the best ways to educate someone through stories is origin stories of your success. Mm-hmm. And so it's really just kind of going back and looking at what are the methods, the beliefs, the tools and resources I've used to get where I am today. And then let's wrap that into like a narrative that teaches people how they could too use those things to be successful. And you're the only one with your story. So again, it's not just about the information. You have to look at the how. You have to look at specifics of how do you know that information? How again, there's a difference between information and knowledge too, right? There could be, the news provides information. That's cat gets saved from tree. That's just information. But knowledge is information experienced. So I can tell you tools to use and ways to do things and strategies to do things because I've lived it and I've failed so many times and finally figured out the best way to do it and realized here's the system. That's knowledge. I've had lived experience and I'm now able to voice it to you. And so someone else might have come to the same conclusion, but you have a different origin story of how you got there. So again, just to kind of put a bow on it, it's not just about the information. People tune in. Again, it's just kind of like how, using news stations as an example, it's the reason people tune in to CNN versus Fox News versus MSNBC is because they're all telling the same story, we hope. But they all have their unique spin on how the story's going and the newscasters that are telling it and all that kind of stuff. And that's why we tune into our favorite newscaster. So you have to kind of look at yourself as like, what's my shtick that's going to make people tune into to my channel.
Yeah. And Dave, you bring up an interesting point, and I know it's something that I feel like I have struggled with at times. And when we get into storytelling, it's like, well, why would anyone want to hear my story? Why is my brand story important? How do you bring that out of the clients you work with to make them understand that their story does matter?
Yeah. So your story matters because we would hope it's the true story. But you've come to a certain level of success in your life where you've been able to translate your success into an offer, say you're a coach or consultant or whatnot. And now you're using everything you've learned to now present an offer to your audience, and you feel confident and you have receipts that prove you're able to help a certain target market. If all of that is true, then one of the most important ways for people to understand why I should go with you, or that I trust that you are who you say you are, you can do what you claim to be, claim to do, is to tell your story, your origin stories of success. How did you get there? And a lot of that, again, is like resources, methods, beliefs. And these are things that, a lot of people say, the imposter syndrome of like, who am I to be charging people for my information? And the big thing is the idea of you might be on chapter 5 and your target market's on chapter 2. How much is it worth for you to help them jump those 3 chapters and get ahead? And that all is done by understanding, okay, what have you done that's gotten you to chapter 5 that I haven't, how do I read ahead? And you're kind of given the cliff notes of those 3 chapters to say, here's what I've been doing for those 3 chapters of my life that allow me to be on chapter 5. And that's what you're selling, right? Like it's what's in your head that you're trying to tangelize, if that's even a word, and show that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And storytelling of the origins of your success are the way to do that.
Man, that's good. This is great stuff. And for those of you who are joining us on Amazon, you can absolutely grab all of these nuggets and more on Dave's podcast, which is the Personal Brand Blueprint, which is in the carousel. But if you're on YouTube, you can find him there. Make sure you subscribe on all the channels. Go over to LinkedIn. It is Dave Polykoff, or can we call you Polly?
It's funny you say that. I don't know if you saw that somewhere else, but my nickname growing up was Polly.
Of course it is. Of course it is.
Yeah. It's
that's
my dad's name.
If I saw you in Philly and I'd be like, "What's up, Polly?" It would be that's it's
100%. I go by Dave Poly sometimes. That's my thing. My dad was a Poly. My brother was a Poly. It's just kind of a thing in the family.
Nice. All right, so I think it's time that we get into a bit of a shift. And we knew we were going here. It seems like we can't do a podcast without talking about AI. And we have our thoughts on AI for sure. And of course, it is every day wake up, open up your computer, and there's 50 new AIs for that, right? That can do this, that, and the other. And I'm sure in your space, not just for content creation, but for lots of other things, you're not just using ChatGPT, but a ton of other things to do. That help you in your not just in your workflow, but I kind of wanted to find out from you, like, what I guess how can I put this? Like, maybe using AI as an enabler, as opposed to using AI as a shortcut or an easy button. In terms of, because a lot of people are going, "Ooh, it used to take me 3 hours to do this, but if I stick it into this thing, I get a whole bunch of this for a far less amount of time, and I've saved all this time." How does that affect what you do?
I love it because we've seen time and time again people rely too much on AI in personal branding. Largely, we see it in like the SEO space too, where they just pump out couple hundred AI generated articles and throw it into a website, and they'll post on social media like, "Look at the traffic that's coming to my website. It's all AI content." And then you give it 3 months, and then that line that went up and to the right is now going down and to the right. So I love it because it's certainly a fad in the sense of, I won't say it's a fad, AI is a fad, but I will say leaning too much on fully generated AI content is the fad right now because it's easy and because people who don't want to put in the time to actually create content are going to take the easiest path. Right. So I totally get it. But people then come to us when they realize that content's not working. And it's very easy to kind of to audit and spot why. So yeah, to your point of like how to utilize AI in your workflow, the number one thing I say is that it acts as the smartest person in the room for you at all times. So when you are creating content, or if you want to think about, you have the blank page, the blinking cursor syndrome, and you don't know what to talk about, you can ask your friend, AI, and say, what are some topics you think I should talk about? And it will spit some out. And then you start, you want to say, all right, well, what are some like good industry case studies or examples that I can use for that concept? And it will do the research quickly for you or whatever. But again, when we go back to storytelling, you need to tell your story. Only you know your story. But to help support the points you're trying to make, AI can be a really quick and easy way to do research, to outline, etc. So it's like a PhD in the room with you at all time, helping you write that essay. But it shouldn't write the essay for you. That's the thing. And the other thing I say with AI is it does eliminate, it reduces a lot of the tedious work for you in some cases. I use it a lot when it comes to things like podcasting and afterwards trying to find the really interesting parts of the podcast, it'll quickly find some of the highlights for you. Now, naturally, a human touch should be in there. It's not perfect yet, but combing through a podcast and finding the highlights, or rewriting something to be a little bit more grammatically correct and all that kind of stuff, instead of you combing through it and trying to do it yourself. So it's a time reducer, but it needs to be used cautiously, where you're not losing the human element to it or the personal side of the personal brand when creating content.
And Dave, so along those lines, where do you see, you mentioned the SEO as an example, but what is the biggest mistakes you see businesses making when they're using AI for content creation?
Well, I think exactly that is just simply putting in a prompt that says, write in a blog post on top 10 lawnmowers, whatever, and it spits out 1,000-word article, and they click copy and paste and publish. For a large part of the reason for that is because obviously search engines are on the attack against AI for that reason. I'm sure there's a lot of legality stuff that's going on with needing to make sure if you're going to take that approach, probably some sort of mark of this is fully AI generated needs to be on there and all that stuff. But Google doesn't like it. So if you're in the SEO game, Google doesn't like it. So that's a big mistake there. It's really great for, again, getting you from 0 to 1 with what to write and maybe the outline for it. It's also really great. There's a tool, I think it's called Surfer SEO or Surfer.io or something like that. And what that does is you put in the keyword you're trying to rank for, and maybe some additional elements like competitive sites and such, or your website, like the keyword you're trying to rank for and your website. And then it looks up that keyword on Google, looks up the first 10 to 20 websites, crawls those websites, and captures information about all the content that's on there, and then spits back, okay, if you want to outrank this, all these websites, you need to write this amount of words, using these keywords, using these headlines and all that kind of stuff. Again, that's a time reducer that you would hire someone to have to go through all of that. Right. It just does it on its own and spits it back out at you. So that's a really great way to use it. But I think just the biggest mistake is assuming that AI is going to write human content and humans want to read something that has emotion to it. I think there's a really great quote or story, and I'm blanking on who the author of it was, to give props to, so forgive me. But they mentioned they recently had a child, and they were in the SEO space, AI space, or whatnot, and they asked the AI to write a story. Talk about technical difficulties.
Yeah, live video can do that. You've got your cameras, but we've got audio. Go ahead and finish that thought.
Sure. Well, I back up. When in doubt.
There we go. There we go. Beautiful.
Yeah. So to finish the story, he said, write me a story of the time your child was born. And it came out with this very generic, it was such a beautiful day and this, that, and the third happened, whatever. And then the guy wrote 1,000 words about the time that his child was born. And it was just this poetic, deep, emotional story. And you just compared the two and it was just incomparable, right? He was there in the room, he felt the baby in his arms, he understood the emotions he was going through. And if you were to, put that when it comes to copywriting and sales landing pages and just any content that's looking to persuade a human, you need to understand what those emotions are in order to put it into your content. And AI is only trying to pretend to know, based on other content that's out there, what it believes a human feels. And it's just maybe one day it'll be able to do it, and Elon's robots will be, just walking amongst us. But as of now, that's not happening.
I love the analogy of treating it like it's the smartest person in the room. And I started to write that down. And then you started talking about, I like to use it because I can take a podcast and then I could, find something, a nugget in the podcast. And I was like, why am I writing it down? Right? Why am I taking the time to my brain writing the words when I can continue to listen to Dave Polykoff talk about how he uses AI? And I think that's a fantastic mindset, I think, for people to look at it and go, listen, I work a lot, Dave, with sales trainers. I produce their podcasts and their shows. And they all say kind of the same thing as it relates to what we're talking about here. And generally, I'm paraphrasing, but generally they say, everybody's kind of selling the same thing, right? It's generally like, yeah, there's this software does this software does this, or this widget does this widget does this. They're all selling the same thing. The only difference between what you're selling and somebody else is selling is you. And I think, that analogy fits so well into what you're talking about is like, I look at like when I put a prompt into ChatGPT about, something, that I want to create in terms of content, I automatically think this is something somebody else wrote. And if I have that mindset and I say, how can this gives me an idea of something that I can write around it, within it, maybe using the framework, the straw man, if you will, and create that content or a piece of a graphic of some sort, and kind of like, I envision using it and kind of molding it into something else. I think is that a safe assumption of how to work with somebody on that mindset?
Yeah, and it's a great point because it makes me think of times where I put in prompts in ChatGPT and it's try to inject some humor into the content, and like an AI's humor isn't my humor.
Right.
So I wouldn't, going back to the concept of like not wanting to look cringy online, like I don't want AI, telling knock jokes in my content. It's just not, it doesn't have my humor, right?
Terrible sense of humor, right?
Yeah. And so, I mean, it can be funny at times. There's times it gives like good analogies and such that I'll, like, that's a good way to phrase it. I'll put it in my own words, but the concept is there. But yeah, it's just, you can tell it's like a really bad actor trying to portray, a role in a film, and you can tell that it's an actor acting. And it someone like Leonardo DiCaprio, that incredible actor, you can't even tell that he's acting. It just seems like it's just synonymous with who it is. But I won't name drop a terrible actor that I think of. But I'm sure we can all think of a time where we were like, we were watching a movie and we were like, I can tell that I'm watching a movie.
Right.
It's hard to kind of pinpoint why, but there's just something here where I can tell this person is an actor and they're not naturally the character they're claiming to be. And that's how I would like define what AI content is. It's just it's acting as a human, and you can kind of just tell that there's something off. Yeah,
that's it's a great way to put it. It's almost like, when you went into some of the Marvel movies, you're like, I feel like I'm watching a video game. This is clearly not real. You just have to pretend it's real and close your eyes. And so what are your thoughts on like these AI avatars that people are like, hey, when I'm dead and gone, you could still like use me as a chat bot, and I'll pop up on your screen and it'll be like, the AI version of me. I realize at this point it's like the clip art version of what it will be eventually, because right now it's like this is the worst it's ever going to get. But what are your thoughts there on that? And you're in the personal branding space. I have a guess of how you feel, but how do you feel about all that?
I think there's interesting. I'll say I'm when it comes to like personal branding and representing yourself when you're alive online, highly against it. for many reasons, unless somehow that's correlated with your business, right? So I have a friend who has a business that uses AI avatars, video avatars, for sales purposes. So you can create custom sales videos to post in your emails at scale without having to record all of them and whatnot. And that's pretty harmless. It's like, yeah, it's not genuine, whatever, but it's just like a sales video or whatever. I'd rather be entertained by that over an email than get some of these spammy, lengthy ones, whatever.
And there's a disclaimer. They're saying this isn't necessarily okay.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so what he's been doing is creating those videos, the AI avatar videos, and creating social content, but putting at the end of it, like you can kind of tell, but if you're not paying full attention, you might think it's a genuine video. But at the end says, oh, by the way, this is an AI generated video. And this is an example of what you can be sending your prospects and whatnot. I think that's a really interesting way to utilize that. And it correlates with his business. But to use it as a way to try to get one over on your audience by saying, oh, creating content's hard. So I'm just and time consuming. So I'm just going to type a couple scripts into some AI avatar generated thing and just make 1 million. It's going back to the idea of putting some prompts into ChatGPT and pushing out 100 SEO articles and publishing that on your website. We all see what the end result is going to be there. Same thing with like the AI avatar talking head videos. It's going to be the same result. And, people want to buy from people that they can know, like, and trust and feel they have a genuine connection with. And if they're talking to an AI avatar, maybe you can sell, again, like B2C products or something, like little widgets and things that don't really impact your life too much, whatever. But if you're selling high ticket offers, 3,000 plus, whatever, I don't want to talk to an AI avatar. I want to know that like I'm right. So that's my thing. But if we really want to get down a rabbit hole of like being able to replicate yourself so that when you die, like the people you leave behind have some sort of version of you that they can interact with, that stuff's kind of cool and interesting. But I don't know. I haven't given that as much thought. Yeah.
I think my family wouldn't want to interact with me after I'm dead. They
pull the plug. Where's the off button?
Exactly.
It's like, hey, he's finally gone. Thank God.
Yeah. Shut that thing up.
That's hilarious, Dave. This has been awesome. And for those of you who are watching and listening, make sure you go to Dave Polykoff. It's spelled Polykoff. DavePolykoff.com. Find him on LinkedIn. Grab the podcast, which is let me pull this up. It still is in the carousel, right, Jim? Yeah, here it is. Personal Brand Blueprint. Make sure you follow, subscribe. There is this guy is Dave. Thanks so much. You've delivered tons of value. Like there are some shows, Jim, where I feel like we just got some free consultation. We should be paying our don't tell our guests. We should be paying him, Jim.
Yeah. Okay. We'll talk after the show then.
But Dave, any other place that besides LinkedIn, DavePolykoff.com that people can reach out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, check out my LinkedIn. That's kind of the proof is in the pudding, where I help coaches, consultants, founders, solopreneurs launch and monetize their personal brands. And so the way that I prove I'm doing that is through my own personal brand, which is mainly on LinkedIn. So definitely check that out. And if you like what you see and you're trying to grow your own personal brand, monetize. I know a lot of people on here have kind of some side hustles as well. And a large part of that is, growing your own personal brand. Definitely check out zenpost.com, ZENPOS.com. That is my main agency. That's the personal brand blueprint. That's what that is associated with. And that's where me and my business partner, Dustin, will work with you to, understand your brand identity, craft that for you, help you with some content creation, and then start getting eyeballs on you so that you can monetize your personal brand.
Awesome. Outstanding stuff. Thanks so much, Dave. And for everybody else who is still watching, as always, don't fear the gear.
Thanks for listening to Dealcasters. Congratulations, you've taken another step forward in your content creation journey. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe or follow button here in your favorite podcast player so you can be reminded every time we drop an episode.
We love hearing from our listeners and viewers. And if you're wanting to watch our shows live on Amazon, feel free to follow Dealcasters Live as well at dealcasters.live. Follow us on Twitter or subscribe to our YouTube channel, where we also included added content that you cannot find anywhere else.
If you have questions about this episode or have something you want us to review, you can also email us at dealcasters@dealcasters.live. Thanks again for listening, and you know the deal. Don't fear the gear.